Good morning, students. Hope you're in good health. Today's class is about the clinical enzymology, that is, the implications of the assessment of the enzymes in medical or clinical practice. This is again very important for MBBS, MD, and DMLT students. Many important questions are asked in the exam, from the Viva exam, in the Viva exam, and theory exams from this topic. But the most important point is that these informations are absolutely necessary for you in your day-to-day practice of medicine. So let's begin our class with the clinical significance of the enzyme estimation. That is, what is the purpose of doing these tests? Now, next slide, you can see that the single or serial estimation of the enzyme activity helps us in many ways. First of all, it helps in making the diagnosis and early detection of a disease. Secondly, it helps in ascertaining the prognosis of a disease. Now, what is prognosis? This is the outcome of the disease. So, you can ascertain the outcome of the disease by estimation of enzymes in the serum. Now, next point is response to drugs. It helps in ascertaining the response to drugs in a disease. Now, what is the response to drug? How this can be ascertained by enzyme estimation? That is, if you are prescribing a drug or medication to a patient, after taking those drugs and medications, the patient is getting better or worse. You have to assay this. For this reason, this can be assayed by enzyme assay. If the particular enzyme level goes down, then the patient is getting better, you can say. So, in this way, you can ascertain the response to a drug by estimation of the enzyme. Next point is, it also helps in ascertaining the time course of a disease. Now, what is the time course? That is, how much time is needed approximately for a patient to get cured. This is roughly can be said by the time course of the disease. Now, you can ascertain the time course of the disease by serial estimation of the particular enzyme levels. Remember, the enzymes not only help us in diagnosis and prognosis purpose, it also widely used as therapeutic agents also. Now, what are those therapeutic roles? First of all, enzyme inhibitors can be act as medicine. Now, what are the examples of enzyme inhibitors using as medicine? That is the aspirin. You all know that aspirin is a very well-known and famous painkiller. It acts by inhibiting a very important enzyme of lipid metabolism, that is cyclooxygenase. Later on, you will learn about this important enzyme and the pathway in the lipid metabolism classes. For this time being, just remember the aspirin acts by inhibiting a enzyme, that is cyclooxygenase enzyme. So, this is a classic example of the enzyme inhibitor used as drugs. Next, second therapeutic role of enzymes. Enzyme itself can be used as medications. Like you can see that the patient suffering from pancreatic problem, that is pancreatic insufficiency cases, the pancreatic enzyme supplementations are given to them, as their diseased pancreas cannot synthesize the digestive enzymes. For this reason, pancreatic enzymes are supplemented as a tablet form. So, this is a classic example of enzyme used as medicine. And lastly, the enzyme can be used as a diagnostic tool. How? Like in glucose estimation method, in urea estimation method, in uric acid estimation, lipid estimation method, in the ELISA method. Here in all these methods, we use enzymes as chemicals in the diagnostic kit. Like in the glucose estimation practical classes, you will see in your later phase that we use glucose oxidase and peroxidase, these two enzymes in the method. So, you can see that numerous such examples are there. So, you can see that enzymes can also be used as the diagnostic tool. So, now you can see that enzymes are how much useful. So, these are the clinical significances of enzyme. Now, next slide. Now, this is an important slide. In clinical enzymology, what are those samples from where we assay the enzymes? That is, we can assay the enzyme levels from blood or plasma, cerebrospinal fluid, peritoneal fluid, pleural fluid, saliva, etc. etc. But what are the most important sample for enzyme estimation? That is blood or plasma. Now the next question is the origin of the enzyme in the plasma. Do all these enzymes are produced in the plasma? No. The enzymes that are present in the plasma are either of two origin. First of all, they are secreted from cells. Rather, they are secreted from diseased cells. The diseased cells are leaky. The cells are when disrupted, then the enzymes from the cell comes into the plasma. And secondly, some enzymes are synthesized in the liver and they are secreted in the plasma. And remember again, the enzyme that comes from the diseased cells are non-functional in the plasma. That is, they are having no functions in the plasma. They are functional only when they are inside the cell, like AST, ALT. And on contrary, the enzyme that comes from the liver has roles or activities in the plasma. Example, the enzymes for blood coagulation. So these are the origin-wise classification of the enzymes. Clear? Next, now this is the list of the clinically most important enzymes. It is alphabetically written. That is amylase, alanine aminotransferase or ALT, alkaline phosphatase or ALP, aspartate aminotransferase or AST, creatine kinase or CK, gamma glutamyl transferase or GGT, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase or G6PD, lactate dehydrogenase or LDH, and lipase. So now you have to learn some very pertinent informations about those enzymes. Let's see what are those informations. Next slide. Actually, MBBS and MD students, if you go through the questions asked in the previous years, you will find that the class of these important enzymes are often come in the theory papers. So I have put this slide. That is the which is the major class from where these enzymes belong. Like amylase comes from the major class hydrolase. Alkaline ALT and AST, both alanine aminotransferase and aspartate aminotransferase comes from the transferase major class. Alkaline phosphatase comes from the hydrolase. Creatine kinase is in the transferase class, and GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase, also comes from the transferase major class. G6PD, that is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, and lactate dehydrogenase, both are in the oxidoreductase class, and the lipase is in the hydrolase class. So you have to remember these examples by heart. Now next slide. Now before starting the individual enzymology, let's see what are those important informations you need to keep in mind about every enzymes. That is a little bit of chemistry of the enzyme, the isoforms, the reaction it catalyzes, the functions, the sources of the enzymes, that is where from it come or secreted from which organ or which cells, reference value, method of assessment, and the elevated levels found in which of the diseased conditions. Now let's start the first enzyme in the list, that is AST or aspartate aminotransferase. Now what is the chemistry of the enzyme? That is, it is a transferase group of enzyme, and the reaction that it catalyzes, that the L-glutamate plus oxaloacetate, and the result is alpha ketoglutarate and aspartate. This is a reversible reaction, and AST catalyzes this reaction. Remember, it's a very important reaction for the protein metabolism, and later you will learn this. And what are the sources of this enzyme? That is the cardiac myocyte, hepatocyte, RBC, skeletal muscle, kidney, and lungs. Now remember, the source of the individual enzymes are to be learned, as it will help you to remember the diseased conditions which give rise to the elevated level. Here you can see these are the sources of AST. Now remember, any disease conditions involving these organs or cells will give rise to increased level of this enzyme. Like see here, that is AMI. Blood levels are elevated in which of the condition? First of all is AMI. AMI full form is acute myocardial infarction. In the layman's term, you call it as heart attack. So it is AMI or heart attack. Here AST levels are elevated, and now you can see that it is the disease of cardiac myocytes. And the other causes like viral hepatitis, cirrhosis of liver, liver necrosis, these are again the diseases of hepatocytes. Now you can see that the acute hemolytic anemia, here AST is elevated. This is a disease of RBC. And acute renal failure, this is again a disease of the kidney, and this is another source organ for AST. And muscle injury, muscles are also source of AST. So muscle injury results in the elevated level of AST. So the source organs will help you to remember what are those conditions in which the high level of this enzyme can be expected. Now the method of the assay, that is the IFCC method at 37 degrees centigrade. Now what does it mean? The full form of IFCC is International Federation of Clinical Chemistry. Remember, all the methods of the enzyme assay are to be accredited by this IFCC board. It's an international board, and this test should be performed at 37 degree temperature. Why? Because that is the core body temperature of human beings. So about AST, it's clear. Now the next slide is ALT, that is alanine aminotransferase. Now the chemistry, again it's a transferase group of enzymes, and it catalyzes the reaction, that is L-glutamate plus pyruvate, and the product is alpha ketoglutarate and alanine. It is again a reversible reaction, and remember it is again a very important reaction for the protein metabolism. And what are the sources of the ALT? That is hepatocytes. Remember, the major source of this enzyme in the plasma is the hepatocyte, and other sources are kidney, heart, muscle, pancreas and spleen. And the reference value is within 45 unit per liter. Now the blood levels are elevated in hepatic diseases. And what are those conditions give rise to the hepatic cell damage and gives rise to the high level of ALT? That is drug, alcohol, inflammation, malignancy and cholestasis, or the deposition of fat. All these conditions will lead to the liver injury, and then ALT will be high. And the method of assay is again IFCC at 37 degrees centigrade. Clear? Next slide. In the next slide, let's coming to the a little bit of pathophysiology of the liver disease. Now, many factors can damage the liver or hepatocytes, such as some drugs, some toxins, some infection, like you all know the viral hepatitis, fatty changes, that is excess deposition of fat, anatomical defect of liver, malignancy, heart failure and ischemia. Now what is ischemia? Ischemia is here is blood supply to the liver is less. For this, liver is depriving from the oxygen and glucose. So this is the ischemia. So all these factors will damage the liver or the hepatocyte. So what will be the result of these insults? The result will be either of two types. First of all, if mild injury occurs, then it will be there will be damage to the hepatocyte, and this will lead to the increase in the cellular permeability, and this will lead to the release of the cytoplasmic enzymes like LDH, ALP, AST and ALT. So this is the condition when the mild damage to the liver happens. But when there is profound damage, this leads to the cell death, and from the dead cell there will be release of the cytoplasmic and mitochondrial enzymes. And remember, the enzymes that are present in the cytoplasm and mitochondria of the hepatocytes are ALT and AST. So these will be hugely elevated. And the other cytoplasmic enzymes will also be high in this case. But remember, the level of these two enzymes, ALT and AST, especially AST, best correlates with the number of hepatocyte death. So this is something about the pathophysiology in the liver disease. Clear? Now I am going to the next slide. Actually this slide is prepared for MD students mainly. Here you can find that there are many causes, some chronic and some acute causes of the elevation of the liver enzymes, with causes of mild increase in the liver enzymes and severe elevation of the blood level of these enzymes. Actually this is again a very extensive list. Some of the non-hepatic and uncommon hereditary causes of elevated AST and ALT are mentioned here. But what is very much important for MBBS students to remember at this stage is D-Ritis ratio. It is the ratio of AST and ALT. In a patient, if you see that both the AST and ALT levels are high, then you have to calculate this ratio. If this ratio comes below 1, then it is due to hepatocellular injury. And remember, if this ratio becomes more than 1, then the causes are alcoholic liver disease, drug-induced malignancy, cirrhosis, and etc. So this is D-Ritis ratio. It is often asked and it is a short note also. Clear? Now the next slide is next enzyme of interest is ALP. Now that is alkaline phosphatase. Full name is alkaline phosphatase. Now the chemistry of alkaline phosphatase, it is a metalloenzyme which requires divalent cations and it has many isoenzymes. Later on you will learn. Now it catalyzes which reaction? That is alkaline hydrolysis of substrate. Now the function. Remember, the function of ALP is under evaluation till date. The proposed functions are it helps in the lipid transport and calcification of bones. Now the source organ. Remember, it is widely distributed in the human body. As I have told, that is most of the cells in the body can produce ALP, like bone, liver, mucosa of small intestine, proximal convoluted tubule of the kidney, placenta, germ cell, etc. And another very important thing is that each of the source organ gives rise to each type of the isoforms. Like bone gives rise to one type of isoform, the liver gives rise to another type of isoform, placenta gives rise to another type of isoform, so on and so forth. And these isoforms are differentiated by the differences of their physicochemical properties, like electrophoretic mobility, stability to the denaturation, response to the specific inhibitors, affinity for specific lectin, immunochemical reactions, etc. In short, these isoforms can be separated by electrophoresis, chromatography, etc. Now next slide. Now these are the few lines about the isoenzymes of ALP. Now this is a very important topic for MBBS student as well as very important for MD students, that is the isoenzymes of ALP. Remember, this nomenclature of these types of isoenzymes are based on their electrophoretic mobility. Like alpha 1 ALP, that is the epithelial, the origin is the epithelial cells of the biliary canaliculi. Alpha 2 heat stable ALP, that comes from the hepatic cells. Alpha 2 heat stable ALP that is not destroyed at the 65 degrees centigrade, that is inhibited by phenylalanine. It is the origin is the placenta. These all three types, that is alpha 1 ALP, alpha 2 heat labile and heat stable ALP, these all these enzymes form band at the alpha position in the electrophoresis. Now the next is the pre-beta type. The pre-beta types of ALP is the source is the and it is heat labile. it forms the band at the pre-beta position, and the ALP that forms a band in the gamma position, that is gamma ALP, comes from the intestine and it is inhibited by phenylalanine. Now another very important isoenzyme of ALP is leukocyte alkaline phosphatase. Now it has a very important diagnostic role. It is secreted from the leukocytes, and the most important thing is that it can differentiate CML, that is chronic myeloid leukemia, from lymphoma. In chronic myeloid leukemia, the leukocyte alkaline phosphatase level is decreased, and in case of lymphoma, it is increased. So, in this way, you can differentiate these two diseases. And there are another some noteworthy atypical isoenzymes are there. These are Regan isoenzyme and Nagao isoenzymes. Now let's see what are these enzymes. Now the Regan enzyme that is originated in the placenta. Later on I have made a separate slide for this Regan isoenzyme. For this time being, just look at this Nagao isoenzyme. It is a variant of Regan isoenzyme, and the only difference is it is inhibited by L-leucine. So these are the important short note, that is the isoenzyme of the alkaline phosphatase. Now next slide. Now here this is the separated bands in ALP isoenzymes by electrophoresis, and here another very important entity is macro ALP. As the name suggests that it's a very big molecule, and as it is a big molecule, it is somehow resistant for destruction, as well as it is not filtered in the kidney, as it is a very big molecule. And in some patient you may find that persistent elevated level of ALP is there. So this is due to the presence of this macro ALP. Now the macro ALP is a alkaline phosphatase plus immunoglobulin bound complex. And what are those immunoglobulins? These are IgG or a lesser extent IgA. This molecule can bind with ALP, forming the macro ALP, and results is the persistent elevated level of alkaline phosphatase in the blood, and it is very common in inflammatory bowel disease, and rarely it can be seen in the monoclonal gammopathy of unknown significance patient. It is identified in the electrophoresis with PEG precipitation method. So this is a important short note for mainly MD students, that is macro ALP enzyme. Clear? And lastly, an important topic for short note is the Regan isoenzyme. Before that, see the reference level of alkaline phosphatase. This varies with the age. In the children less than 20 years of age, it is less than 369 unit per liter in our lab, that is in North Bengal Medical College laboratory, and in case of adults it is 53 to 125 unit per liter, and the method of assay is IFCC as 37 degree centigrade. And now coming to the Regan isoenzyme. Now remember, the Regan isoenzyme is a placental type of alkaline phosphatase that is expressed in a number of human tumors, particularly in gonadal and urogenital cancers. Now it is a heat stable alkaline phosphatase, and it is inhibited by L-phenylalanine amino acid, and it is used as a tumor marker for malignancies of lung, ovary, trophoblastic tumor, gastrointestinal malignancy, seminoma, and Hodgkin diseases. So this is all about the Regan isoenzyme, what you need to know, and it is an important short note for MBBS as well as MD students. Now next slide. Here all the conditions leading to the elevated level of ALP in blood are mentioned. Remember, the MD students, you have to mention the type of the isoenzyme along with the conditions where it get elevated. But in MBBS students, you just mug up the whole thing. You have to say only the conditions, not the associated types. Now in case of ALP1, this is increased in obstructive jaundice, and heat labile alkaline phosphatase 2, that is alpha 2 heat labile alkaline phosphatase. This is again of liver origin, and various liver diseases will give rise to the high level of this enzyme. And the Regan isoenzyme, as you all know, it is high in cancer of genitourinary tract. And pre-beta alkaline phosphatase level are high in bone disease. Gamma alkaline phosphatase levels are high in ulcerative colitis or inflammatory bowel disease. And the leukocyte alkaline phosphatase, as I have mentioned, it is high in case of lymphoma and decreased in case of chronic myeloid leukemia. But MBBS student, you just mentioned these causes, like the alkaline phosphatase levels are increased in obstructive jaundice, liver disease, cancers of genitourinary tract, bone disease, ulcerative colitis, and lymphoma. And it is decreased in chronic myeloid leukemia. If you can say this much, then it is okay for you. Now, another very important point is mentioned here, that is the decreased level of ALP. Till now, we have seen all the diseases, the disease conditions with elevated level of enzymes. But here, there is a condition with decreased level of ALP, that is hypophosphatasia. It is a genetic disorder of inability to produce some isoforms of ALP, like bone specific and some non-specific ALP is not synthesized in the body. It's a genetic disease. So here decreased level of ALP is seen. Now the next enzyme of interest is gamma glutamyl transferase, or GGT. And the chemistry, it is located in the cytoplasm and cell membrane. Now inside the cytoplasm, it remains inside the microsome, and it is very important for synthesis of glutathione and transmembrane transport of amino acid and peptides. So these are the functions of GGT, and remember, it has 11 isoenzymes. The reaction it catalyzes that the transfer of gamma glutamyl group to substrate, and the sources are proximal convoluted tubule of kidney, liver, pancreas, and intestine. The method of assay is IFCC method at 37 degrees centigrade. This much is needed for MBBS, but for MD students you have to go further. Here you have to know the substrate and acceptor. Now what is the substrate in this used in this method? That is L-gamma glutamyl 3-carboxy 4-nitroaniline as substrate and glycyl glycerin as acceptor. Now next point, that is the reference level. In case of male it is less than 70, and in case of female it is less than 40 unit per liter, and in child below 7 months the reference level is much higher than the adult. It is 6 to 7 times of the upper normal limit for adults, and the increased level are found in alcoholic hepatitis mainly, and in cases of some drugs like anticonvulsant. And remember, it has prognostic roles also in case of CVS diseases, that is the cardiovascular system. Mortality and morbidity can be predicted by assaying the gamma glutamyl transferase level. Clear? Next enzyme. Till now we have discussed the enzyme that is important for assessing the liver functions. Now we will proceed to another enzyme, that is CK, or the creatine kinase. Remember, it is not creatinine kinase, it is creatine kinase. CK, creatine kinase. And here the CK is the main enzyme, and CKMB is its most important isoenzyme. Now let's begin a few lines about CK, that is the chemistry. It is a dimeric enzyme having 2 subunits, M and B, and it has 3 isoforms. And the sources, different sources organ gives rise to different types of the isoenzymes. So let's see, that is CK1, which is made up of 2 B subunits. It is also called CKBB. It comes from brain, prostate, gastrointestinal tract, lung, uterus and bladder. And next is the CK2 or CKMB. It is made up of 1M and 1 beta subunit, and it is located in the heart muscle mainly, and it is the a great practically important enzyme in this group. And next is CK3. It is made up of 2M subunits. It is also called CKMM, and it comes from muscle as well as heart. So remember, this CK1, 2 and 3 enzymes are cytosolic enzyme. And remember, CK is the energy CK enzyme helps to maintain the energy store of the body. It catalyzes the reversible reaction for transfer of high energy phosphate from ATP to creatine according to the energy need of the body. When the energy is needed for muscle contraction, then the ATP is generated. And when the energy is needed to be stored in the muscle, then the creatine phosphate is formed, and both of the reaction is catalyzed by CK. And remember, there is another important isoenzyme of CK, that is mitochondrial CK. This form has also function in the energy production of the body. Now the next point is the blood levels are elevated in which conditions? That is, the blood level of CKMB are elevated in which of the conditions? Now remember, physiologically during childbirth CKMB level will get high, and the other pathological causes, these are the injury, inflammation and necrosis of the cardiac myocytes, muscles and some drugs. Now remember, a special role of CKMB in acute myocardial infarction or heart attack. Actually, the acute myocardial infarction comes in your chart in the practical exam as chart, and this will be later covered under a separate class. But here in clinical enzymology also I am just mentioning a special roles of CKMB in AMI. That is, diagnosis of AMI or acute myocardial infarction, CKMB level is assessed. Diagnosis of re-AMI and diagnosis of AMI in renal failure patient, CKMB level is assessed. Now let me explain these 2 points. First of all, coming to the diagnosis of AMI in renal failure patient. Remember, in renal failure patient, all of the blood biomarkers of acute myocardial infarction will be elevated even in absence of AMI. Only exception is CKMB. So in a renal failure patient, if you find that the CKMB level is elevated, then you can say that AMI can be a diagnosis. So it is very important in case of diagnosis of AMI in renal failure patient. And remember, it comes as a very important question, viva question. And next, that is the method of assay, that is again IFCC as 37 degrees centigrade. And now the reference level of the CKMB. Remember that total CK level is not of much importance. What you need to remember is the CKMB level, that is 5 to 25 unit per liter, and roughly it is normally in body 3 to 5% of the total CK value comprises the CKMB level. Now next slide. Now in this slide I will explain you why CKMB is analyzed for the diagnosis of re-AMI. Now these are the blood biomarkers of AMI. All these blood biomarkers of AMI will be discussed in a separate class. Just for the time being, remember CKMB, AST, LDH and cardiac troponin T and I. These are the main biomarkers of acute myocardial infarction. And remember, CKMB level starts to rise within 2 to 4 hours after the occurrence of the acute myocardial infarction. It reaches the peak at 24 hours and return to the baseline within 48 to 72 hours. So it is the parameter, it is the blood parameter which touches the baseline earliest. And remember, the re-AMI usually occurs after 48 to 72 hours by the time CKMB level touches the baseline. So if you find another elevation of the CKMB level after 48 to 72 hours, then you can say that re-AMI has occurred. So this is very important point for diagnosis of re-AMI. Clear? It is again an important Viva question. Next enzyme of interest is LDH. Now the chemistry, it is a tetrameric enzyme of cytoplasmic enzyme it is, and there are 8 isoforms of LDH. Now what are those? That is LDH 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and LDHX and macro LDH. Again that macro LDH, just similar with macro ALP, it is the LDH enzyme bound with IgG or IgM molecule. So it's a big LDH complex. So these are all the isoenzyme of LDH, and the reaction it catalyzes in the body, that is the interconversion of pyruvate and lactate. The source. Now remember, almost every organ can produce LDH. So all of the organs can generate LDH, but I must mention 2 of the isoenzymes separately with their origin for some reason. Later on you will learn what is the reason. Now let's see. These are LDH1 and LDH2. Now what are the source of the LDH1? That is mainly heart muscle and to a very less extent RBC and kidney. And LDH2 is mainly from liver and skeletal muscle. Clear? Now the method of assay of total LDH is IFCC method at 37 degrees centigrade, and each isoforms can be assayed by electrophoresis or chromatography coupled with densitometry. Now the reference level of serum LDH, that is total serum LDH, should be 120 to 200 unit per liter, and the elevated levels of LDH in blood is found in acute myocardial infarction, hepatitis, megaloblastic anemia, germ cell tumor, and very important nowadays, that is COVID-19. Remember, in COVID-19 LDH is a very important parameter to be done. And lastly, the prognostic value, it has prognostic value in case of leukemia, lymphoma, melanoma, testicular tumor, small cell carcinoma of lung, etc. Now I will clear you that why LDH1 and LDH2 sources are mentioned separately. Because in case of AMI, the flipped pattern of LDH level is seen. What is the flipped pattern? That is, here in case of normal patient, if you do the separation of the isoenzyme of LDH, you will find and quantify the LDH isoenzymes, you will see that there is high level of LDH2 then LDH1. The LDH2 isoforms are normally present in the blood in greater amount than the LDH1. But in case of acute myocardial infarction, the thing get just reversed. Here this is the flipped pattern. Here the level of LDH1 will be higher than the LDH2. Why? Because here acute myocardial infarction, the heart muscles are dead and LDH1 are secreted, LDH1 isoform is secreted from the heart. So the damaged heart will secrete huge amount of LDH1 into the blood, and now the LDH1 level will be much higher than the LDH2 level. So this is the flipped pattern of LDH isoenzymes in acute myocardial infarctions. So it is an important Viva question. Clear? Now we are going to the next slide. Here you can see it is the electrophoretic separation of the LDH isoenzymes. Now next, the LDH levels in CSF has some diagnostic value. Now, what are those diagnostic value? MBBS students, remember, in bacterial meningitis, viral meningitis, metastatic tumor and neonatal intracranial hemorrhages. These are the 4 conditions where LDH level is high in the CSF. And MD students, you have to remember which isoenzyme is high in which of the conditions. Now, this is the importance of LDH estimation in CSF. MBBS students, remember, in bacterial meningitis, viral meningitis, metastatic tumor of brain and neonatal cases of intracranial hemorrhages, all these cases CSF LDH level will be high. Now, next slide, that is, now we will proceed to the enzymes for pancreatic function assessment. Here there will be separate class for pancreatic functions, but here we just mention 2 of the pancreatic enzymes. We will learn about these 2 pancreatic enzymes. These are amylase and lipase. So first learn about the amylase. Now, what is the chemistry? Actually, it breaks the 1,4-alpha D-glucosidic linkage of carbohydrates. By the time you know the linkages of the polysaccharides, so you know that there are some linkages. One of them is 1,4-alpha D-glucosidic linkage. Amylase acts on this linkage and breaks the polysaccharides. Remember, it is a calcium containing metalloenzyme and it's a very small molecule, pass easily through the glomerulus. Each point I have mentioned has very important clinical importance. Now the isoenzymes are of 3 types: P type, S type and macroamylase. Again, the macroamylase is the amylase bound with the IgG and IgM molecule. It's a big molecule, macroamylase, and it is not cleared from the blood by kidney, as it is a big molecule, so kidney cannot filter it and it will give rise to the high level of amylase in the blood. Now, what are those 2 other types, that is P type and S type? P type, P stands for pancreas. P type comes from the pancreas and S stands for saliva. S type comes from the saliva. Now, the sources or the distribution in the body: amylase comes from pancreas, salivary gland, ovary, fallopian tube, lung, adipose tissue, etc. And the reference interval in our North Bengal Medical College lab is in the serum or plasma, it is less than 90 unit per liter. Clear? Now, the next slide is the causes of increased level of amylase in the blood. Again, remember the same formula, all the diseases of the source organ, like it comes from the pancreas. So, the pancreatic causes like pancreatitis, trauma to the pancreas will lead to the high level of amylase in the blood. And all the intra-abdominal cases like intestinal obstruction and appendicitis, duodenitis, peritonitis, gastritis, perforation of GI tract, where the amylase level will be high in the body. And the genitourinary causes, that is ruptured tubal ectopics. That is, here actually what happens in a pregnant lady, the fetus is normally located inside the uterus. Fetus grows inside the uterus, but if due to any problem, the fetus is implanted in the fallopian tube, and when it grows, then the tube will get ruptured, and it's a very very important clinical emergency in gynae ward. This ruptured tubal ectopic can be diagnosed by the amylase level. And another thing, salpingitis. This is the inflammation of the fallopian tube, and ovarian carcinoma. And other causes, salivary gland tumors, salivary gland inflammation, septic shock, macroamylasemia, that is the high level of immunoglobulin bound amylase is there, which is not cleared by the kidney, and diabetic ketoacidosis. All these levels, all these conditions will give rise to high level of amylase in the blood. Now, next slide, that is the lipase. Now, this is again a very important parameter to assay in the pancreatic function test. What is the chemistry? It is a triacyl glycerol hydrolase. It attacks the 1,3 alpha position in fat or triacyl glycerol and makes glycerol and fatty acid. It is the glycoprotein in nature and it's a very small molecule easily filtered in the kidney, and it is expected to be excreted in the urine. Now the full catalytic activity is present in case of presence of bile salt and a cofactor called colipase. And now it is secreted from pancreas mainly, and also from a lesser extent gastric, pulmonary and intestinal mucosa. Now the method of assay. Remember I have mentioned many methods. There are 6 methods mentioned here. But remember MBBS students, you only need to remember just last one, that is the enzymatic color test done in the North Bengal Medical College laboratory. But the MD students, you have to remember all these methods that are titrimetric, spectrophotometric, fluorometric, immunometric and turbidometric methods. You have to remember also. Now next slide, there is the reference range of the lipase. In our lab, the reference level is within 60 unit per liter. And what is the condition associated with increased value of lipase in the blood? That is mainly acute pancreatitis and also chronic pancreatitis and obstruction of the pancreatic duct. Now lastly, a point I have mentioned in red letters, caution in test interpretation. That is, in renal failure cases leads to the increased value of amylase and lipase in the blood in absence of any diseases, because any other diseases, that is because you, by the time you know that the amylase and lipase are very small enzyme and they can easily filtered from the kidney, but the diseased kidney cannot filter it. So in absence of all the diseases of the source organ of amylase and lipase, in renal failure patient you will see the high level of lipase and amylase in blood. So clear? Now the next important, very important enzyme is in clinical practice is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Specifically in pediatric ward, also in the male medicine ward, you will find wide practice of the G6PD enzyme assessment. So let's see the chemistry. It has 4 subunit. Remember, it can exist as dimer or tetramer. In human, it has 2 isoforms, and remember there are minute changes in the polypeptide, in the amino acid sequence of the polypeptide chain of the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenases. According to these minor amino acid changes, there may be more than 400 variants of G6PD enzyme worldwide. And the source organ, remember every cell can produce this enzyme. Every cell are the sources of this enzyme. But remember, this enzyme is of very importance in case of RBC. Why? I will discuss in the next slide. The reaction that it catalyzes the second step of HMP shunt or the hexose monophosphate shunt pathway, and the utility of this enzyme is it generates the NADPH. And the method of assay, MBBS students, remember there are many methods, but there may be 2 types of methods of G6PD estimation: qualitative as well as quantitative. Remember, the qualitative as well as quantitative, these are 2 methods can be done for the assessment of the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. But MD students, you have to remember all the methods. Like spectrophotometric method are done as quantitative method, and Butler's fluorescent spot test is done as semi-quantitative or qualitative method. And remember MD students, methemoglobin reduction test is positive in case of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme deficiency, because here actually what happened, in this patient methemoglobin level is very high, so methemoglobin reduction test will be positive. This is again very important question for MD students as well as DMLT student. Now the reference level, that is 232 470 unit per 10 to the power 12 RBC. This is the unit. Remember this unit carefully. In all other enzymes, the units were unit per liter, but it is unit per 10 to the power 12 RBCs. And the clinical importance is when this enzyme is deficient, then disease occurs. Actually, remember all the previously mentioned enzyme activity, when the enzymes are increased in the blood, then it will give rise to disease. But in today's class, you have learned that another enzyme which is when low in the blood, this may manifest as disease. Can you say which one? Yes, it is ALP, alkaline phosphatase. Remember, in case of hypophosphatasia, alkaline phosphatase levels are low, as well as leukocyte alkaline phosphatase levels were low in the CML, that is chronic myeloid leukemia. So, apart from alkaline phosphatase, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is another enzyme which when the level is low, then disease manifests. Now remember, what is the disease? The disease is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency disease or G6PD deficiency disease, and it has 5 types, type 1 to 5. Now going to the next slide. Now here we will discuss the function of G6PD enzyme and what happens when it is inadequate in blood and why it is very much important for RBC. First, see the function of the G6PD. Look at the left lower corner of the slide. That is glucose acted by hexokinase and forms glucose 6-phosphate, and then comes the G6PD enzyme. It forms 6-phosphogluconolactone or 6-phosphate gluconate. 6-phosphate gluconate is formed, and here NADPH is generated. And what are the roles of the NADPH in human body? Remember, it is a very important short note or viva question, the roles of the NADPH. But for the time being, just remember, it has many important roles in metabolism. You will learn in the metabolism classes. But remember, one of the most important function of the NADPH in human body is to keep glutathione in reduced state. To keep glutathione in a reduced state. Now remember, every cell has multiple pathways for generation of the NADPH except RBC. In the mature RBC, only pathway that is operating for NADPH generation is HMP shunt pathway. So if glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme is deficient in the RBC, this will give rise to the scarcity of NADPH in RBC. And as you all know that the main function of the RBC is to carry oxygen, so it is exposed to high oxidative stress or high amount of free radicals that is generated from the oxygen, high amount of peroxides are generated inside the RBC. All these free radicals and peroxides should be neutralized very readily by reduced glutathione. Who neutralizes the free radicals inside the RBC? That is reduced glutathione. Otherwise, if free radicals accumulate, if reduced glutathione are deficient, then the free radical will accumulate inside the RBC and this will lead to hemolysis or lysis of the RBC. So, a constant supply of reduced glutathione is absolutely needed to keep RBC intact. For this purpose, a constant supply of NADPH should be there inside the RBC to keep glutathione in reduced state. Here, if due to any reason glucose 6-phosphate enzyme activity is reduced, then the lysis of RBC will occur, as here there will be scarcity of NADPH, there will be scarcity of reduced glutathione. So, I hope it is clear to you that what is the pathophysiology behind the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase diseases and why it is very much important in case of RBC. I hope it is clear to you. Now the next slide. Now something about the disease, glucose 6-phosphate deficiency disorders, that is first of all, the inheritance of a disease. Remember, if a disease come as a short note, then you have to write it under some heading. First of all, it is the inheritance, then what is the cause of the disease, now what is the clinical feature of the disease, what are the symptoms precipitated by, in case of this disease, the symptoms precipitated by which of the stressors, and lastly how to diagnose it, as well as the management or the treatment of this disease. So these are the broad headings under which you have to describe each disease. Remember this formula throughout your life until the DMMCH exams. You have to write a disease, about a disease in such a way. So coming to the first point, that is the inheritance, that is it is X-linked recessive. So here you all know from the laws of the genetics, you have learned in the undergraduate classes, you have learned in the plus 2 or 10 exam, and that is male are sufferer in case of X-linked recessive disease, but the female are the carrier. Females are the carrier. And what is the cause of the disease? You know that is the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme is deficient. Now what is the clinical feature? That is hemolysis, lysis of the RBC, you all know. And what is the effect of the hemolysis? That is mild to moderate to severe jaundice. You all know that when the RBC get lysed, then it will give rise to jaundice. And another thing, that is dark urine. What is the cause of the dark urine? Dark urine is due to the hemoglobinuria. The RBC is lysed, hemoglobin is excreted in the urine. So it is the cause of dark urine. And also splenomegaly, fatigue, anemia. These all are the clinical features. Now the next important point is what are the symptoms, what are the stressors or the symptoms precipitated by which of the factors. That is first of all infection. Infection will give rise to the precipitation of the symptoms, and also drugs. And which are those drugs? These are mainly antibiotics and anti-malarials. Remember, anti-malarials, in the male medicine ward you will find there are many malaria patients, because our country is endemic for malaria. Here many malaria patient will come, and before prescribing anti-malarials like primaquine, chloroquine, you have to do the G6PD level, because the patient may be deficient in G6PD enzyme, and when if you give the anti-malarials to them, this will lead to the widespread destruction of the RBC. And other point is toxin like flavavins. These are a very important food adulterant. These toxin, all these factors, infections, drugs, toxin can precipitate the symptoms of G6PD deficiency. And how they precipitate the symptoms? This is by increasing oxidative stress. Infection, drugs, toxin, all the stressors increases oxidative stress. For this reason, the RBC lysis is precipitated, because the RBC cannot handle this high oxidative stress, as NADPH is low and glutathione is low. So the free radicals generated in the RBC and RBC get lysed. Now what is the management? And lastly the diagnosis. Diagnosis is done by the enzyme estimation, we have learned before. And the management, that is sole way of management is avoidance of the stressor. Before administration of the causative drugs, you have to assay G6PD. And in case of neonatal jaundice, neonatal sepsis, in the pediatric ward, many patients come, many neonates come with jaundice, with sepsis. You have to do G6PD level in these patients to save their life. So these are the management. Now next slide. This side I have mentioned the therapeutic uses of the enzyme. This is again a short note. Remember some examples where the enzymes used as drug, that is asperginase. Asperginase enzyme is used as treatment modality in acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Now, streptokinase and urokinase, these are used to lyse the intravascular clot. Remember, these are the first line treatment modality in acute myocardial infarction. These are the first line treatment modality in acute myocardial infarction or heart attack. So it is of very, 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 very important. You have to remember, forget all others, but just remember these two examples, streptokinase and urokinase. These are used to lyse the intravascular clot. This is the lifesaver for the heart attack patients. Now next is pancreatine. It is the tablet containing trypsin and lipase used in the pancreatic insufficiency patients, as here the pancreas is defective, so it cannot produce these digestive enzymes, so supplementations are given. And next is the papain. It is used as anti-inflammatory agent, and alpha-1 antitrypsin. Remember, the alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency disease affect lung, so the deficient enzyme has to be supplied from outside. So this exhaustive class has reached its end. If you have any doubt, you can come in the department and ask me. Thank you.